Hi, folks. Jennifer Nelson here, founder of Scout Real Estate. Glad you're listening in. I created Pocket Hours podcast to elevate our game and help us all learn from the best. I have interviewed some of the top producers in our industry about best practices, among many other things. We also tackle industry issues and changes with great conversation from many of our leaders. And the best part is you get clock hours just for listening in. After you have listened to 3 episodes, just email info@scoutrealestate.com to answer a few easy questions for the interview, and you will receive your certificate. Meanwhile, enjoy listening and learning, and go out there and be the agent you would hire. I get to interview again on this show Kelley, Meister, and Amie Stewart, the infamous and famous Meister Stewart team. And today I'm talking to them about the SOC changes from 2024. We're talking about the buyer-broker agreement, and we're talking just a little bit about why they've had so much success in this industry. One of the lines that Kelley says in regards to multiple offers is, if you don't play, you don't win. And so really helping both of their clients stand out in such a way where they reflect their values in coming to that listing agent and saying, I'm not going to bug you. I'm going to show you that I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to present a clean offer for you. So I'm excited for you to hear from them. Here we go. I get to interview some of my longtime colleagues, friends, people I used to work in the same office with, and the lovely team that we are well acquainted with, Meister Stewart. Welcome to Pocket Hours once again. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Right on. The reason I asked them to come back on today is because I wanted to hear from them. They've been doing this a long time. We're going to get to that in a minute, about sort of the changes that have happened in our industry, even in the last 12 months to 24 months, and how that's impacted them, how they're handling it as a team, what they're doing with clients. So they got these questions ahead of time. I know they've spent hours poring over them. Just kidding. They're busy professionals. But the great news about this is that they have been doing this long enough to know exactly how to answer these questions. So I'm excited to hear from them on that. But here's how we're going to start. First of all, how long have you all been doing real estate? Again, remind our listeners.
I'm just coming into my 20th year.
Nice. Congrats.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Thank
so cool.
you.
Yeah. I think I'm about the same. I think I'm about a year behind Kelley. So
19 or 20 years. Yeah.
Yep.
There's fewer and fewer of us that have been doing this long. So way to go. We should have a badge or something for this, don't you think? Like, we got through some pretty tough times there. So awesome.
Yeah.
Last time I had you on the show, we talked a lot about teams because you all have created a team that most people don't make it in teams. They're like, hey, let's do a partnership. Let's do this thing. And honestly, the stats are crazy low for ones that actually make it. So I know I asked you this last time, but I'd love for each of you to comment. Why do you think you're different? Why does it work?
Well, I'll start first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a marriage, first of all. And that's why 50% of marriages don't work because it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Amie and I have known each other for 30 years. So that was a little bit easier. And we knew that we needed to try to have that work-life balance. And we also knew that if we tried it and it didn't work, our friendship would still be intact.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, it was right place, right time. I had been approached by other people to partner prior to Amie and I partnering. And it was just like, nope. Like I just, it just wasn't there. So,
yeah. Okay.
So that's for me.
Okay.
And I think for me, one of the reasons it lasts so well is we share a lot of the same values. We also bring different strengths to the table. So there's that. And as you can see, we often share a brain. We show up to work in the same colors,
There we
the
go.
same outfits half the time.
Yep.
And
Yep.
So, but the values thing is huge. And, and I think we just knew that early on.
And when it comes to that, it's like we never doubt each other. We know what where we stand on things, the other's going to stand on them.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So.
That makes a huge difference. For listeners, the people that aren't going to watch the part where you can watch this interview, I just want to say when we got on this call, they're wearing a lot of the same outfit. Like they could be twinsies. Like their glasses don't perfectly match.
Oh, we didn't wear the right same ring today.
Normally we have the same ring. Yeah.
Okay. Same ring even. So there you go. So any of you thinking about being a team, try to find someone who wears the same clothes as you. Let's start there and then go for something else. Um, okay, we're gonna switch into sort of the topics that I wanted to hear from you both on, and that's to say, man, a lot has gone down in our industry in the last little bit. And let's talk first about the National Association of Realtors settlement. Last year, we sort of navigated what happened in the NAR settlement. And I always mix that up with NRA. It's not the same. It's not the National Rifle Association. It's a different organization. But talk to us a little bit about what you say happened. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I think NAR is actually a bigger lobby than the NRA. So, my perspective on what happened. You mean in relation to the lawsuit itself?
Yep.
My interpretation of it is people in Missouri, a lot of homeowners felt that it was presented to them that paying a 6% commission was standard and was not negotiable. And they didn't feel that it was explained to them, and they were pressured to sign those listing agreements and pay both the seller's compensation as well as the buyer's compensation. And obviously, it's always been negotiable. We know that we're ethical agents, but I am sure that there are a billion people in the NIAR who aren't. So I see that there was some merit in it, but when it breaks down, I'm surprised that they won. But just like used car salesmen, some of them are great, some of them not so great. Same with agents. And, we've certainly seen brokers who, I work for free and, blah, 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 and or pressuring sellers into like, no, this is just what it is, instead of having a conversation about the
Yeah.
value and how we are compensated and what our rates are.
There was some talk about, a couple people get disgruntled and then an attorney that feels like, "Ooh, I'm going to chase this for a little
Mhm.
while," says, "I bet there's others," because realtors are sort of always up for grabs in terms of right up there with attorneys, right? Like we're kind of seen as these people who make a bunch of money and don't work hard. And so it felt to me a little bit like I said, like an attorney got a hold of this, went and found other buyers that said, "Yeah, me too. I didn't know that either." And this became this giant class action lawsuit, the NRA, NAR. See, there it is. Jeez. I'm going to get sued from the NRA. That's what's going to happen. But um, the NAR then finally settled just because it felt harder in some ways to fight this, to show differently, because all of these people were saying it. Has this come up for you in your business? Like, have you felt like in the last year you've talked about this? Has it impacted it? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think the lawsuit itself had come up quite a bit. I mean, the benefit to us is that we, especially in our buyer meetings, had always had buyer agency in place for at least a solid 5 years. And so it was an opportunity to kind of just better explain that and then when we sat down with sellers, it just came down to with the forms changing better explaining how the fees were decoupled now and that there's a little bit more emphasis on, you're not obligated to offer compensation to the buy side, but we recommend that you do. And kind of that what had come out of that lawsuit was more of a transparency over how we are compensated, how that works, how the buy side is compensated, and why it might be important for sellers to continue to compensate the buy side, and what the risks are if they don't. So,
Yeah.
You're right, as far as like the lawyers getting a hold of it and running with it and finding a bunch of people. But I always also want to focus on that, there people were being lied to. Do I believe it was, as widespread, and should this class action? But it's also, it was a consumer issue, and there are sharks out there and
and bad actors,
bad
bad agents.
actors. And, without
Yeah.
saying it, a lot of our clients knew about the lawsuit
Mhm.
and were fairly educated on it when we first started breaking it down. But I think a lot of sellers didn't understand that, prices have been inflated to compensate for the buyer broker compensation, even though obviously it's like, why am I paying this? Why aren't they paying their brokers? It's just sort of how it's been, and prices have been inflated to compensate for that.
Right.
Your house would be worth less.
I heard someone say buyers have always paid for this, sort of without knowing in a way. Because when you go to buy a house, the price that the listing broker puts up has that commission already taken out, but nobody gets paid unless a buyer comes forward with money, right? No one
Mhm.
gets paid.
Mhm.
I'm going to, just for our listeners, decoupling, Amy, you brought that up just for a minute, but back in the day, not that long ago, a listing agent would come forward and say, yes, I can list your house and here's the fee,
Mhm.
whatever percentage that was. And that included both money for the listing agent and for the buyer broker.
Mhm.
And so this lawsuit, I think, to your point, to both of your points, to say, that's great that we can talk about this more freely. And it sort of gave us permission to do that. Like, what a great thing to be like, hey, let's talk about this settlement, because then we can explain ourselves even further and say, of course, you don't have to pay a buyer broker anything if you don't want to, but talk about shooting yourself in the foot. Let's look at all the comps and what they're paying and, give some strategy around that.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because back in the day, it was really up to the firm to decide what they were going to allocate to the other firm. And now, I mean, truly, it's more up to the seller,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The only thing that's been not great about this for us, it's
Yeah.
not about the having to explain it to our clients. It's when it becomes, and since it's on the first page of the residential, the 21, now is on the front page of the contract, which now everybody thinks it's a negotiation
Hmm.
during a normal, house negotiation. We're negotiating other terms between buyer and seller. And now suddenly we're seeing that these things are also being negotiated when they've already been negotiated and,
In the listing
agreements
agreement.
signed,
Yeah.
buyer brokerage agency signed. And now it's, you're seeing it's like, well, why don't you give this a little up and why don't you give that? It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, thank
It is,
you.
it's interesting to me because I can't think of it. I'd love for you to think of it. There isn't another industry that I know of where our compensation is sort of negotiated or talked about over here by the people using it after the fact.
Right.
So you go do this work for us, and then we'll figure out later what we're going to pay you. Right. So to your point of, if we're negotiating my fee later, whoa, wait a minute. Nope. There's nobody else I know with this level of experience in any industry that's going to sign up for that. Right. That's why we have a buyer broker agreement that says this is what we'll get paid. That's why we have a listing agreement that says this is what you'll pay. Yeah, that's what you'll pay us. Let's talk for a little bit about how this goes down in multiple offers for you. So one of the snags I think that this creates is that I meet with a buyer. They say, "Yay, we love Jennifer. We want to work with her." We sign a buyer broker agreement for my fee. Now we're up against 6 other offers, and the seller has said to the brokerage, "This is all I'm going to pay a buyer broker," and it's less than what my buyer has agreed to pay. How do you handle that?
We haven't had that yet. We'd have to ask the buyer. It would be essentially like
Well,
them raising their price. I
yeah.
mean, raising their, what they're willing to pay.
Right.
I actually had it happen
Oh.
once. We had it happen just over Christmas. So we had a buyer agency agreement for a certain percentage, and we wrote an offer on a property, and then the seller did not respond that day, and the next day they got another offer. And so in order for our clients to get it, part of that negotiation was us having to reduce a little bit in order for it to go through. There were a number of reasons why we agreed to it, but it was mostly because it became a multiple offer situation.
Because the competitive offer was saying, "We'll accept whatever the seller's willing to pay."
Yes. And so
Got
it
it.
made a significant difference to them. And they basically said, unless you can match this offer, we're going to go with that offer. So, and
Got
that
it.
was part of it was our compensation. And if push had come to shove, would the buyers have stepped up and paid that other partial percentage? Then possibly, but I just didn't feel it was worth that in order to have it come together.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there might be situations where it is, but for these particular clients, it wasn't.
Yeah. And we have the liberty of that. I mean, for the listeners, some people are kind of diehard on this, and this is my fee and I never change it. And I guess I'm the first person to say, don't die on that hill. Be careful. People are
Right.
different, clients are different, situations are different. While the same thing, I don't want to say be willy-nilly about your fee, because I think that lends to lots of difficulty with other clients too, when you're sort of,
Yeah.
well, this and that
Yeah, I
and the
mean,
other
like
about
you
it.
have a standard, but sometimes there are unique circumstances
Yeah,
and you've got to evaluate whether or not you want to lose the deal altogether or
right.
you're willing to make a compromise.
Yeah. You all alluded to the fact that you did, for the last 5 years at least, a buyer consultation form.
Yeah.
What I've said to people recently in my buyer consultations is that for a long time, if I'm going to list your house, I would meet with you. I would bring an agreement. We would sign it. We'd talk about compensation and my marketing, blah, blah, blah. But on the buyer side, for a long time in our industry, it was the Wild West. It was sort of someone could call you and say, "We'd like to see this house." And you don't even know their last name. You show up, you open a door. They may or may not ever see you again, but thank you for opening that door. So a lot of brokers operated sort of in that Wild West format for a long time. I've been doing a buyer consultation for 15 years. Sounds like you've been doing it for 5 or more. What made you make that change? Because even now, people don't have to have a buyer consultation. Go ahead, Amie. What were you going to
Sorry, I
say?
was gonna just to clarify, we've been doing consultations for a very long time. It's the putting in place the BBSA for the last 5 years. But yeah, we've always sat down for as long as I can remember and
Mhm.
had at least a 1 hour consultation. Yeah,
Before opening any doors.
Got it.
exactly.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. So just for our listeners' sake, why do you do that? What's the purpose of the consultation? Because still there's tons of brokers that don't. So what purpose does that serve for you?
It really maps out our responsibility to each other. And I think, again, just like the lawsuit, they don't understand how we're paid. And they just have so many questions and they don't know what they don't know. And it's our job to tell them what they
Mhm.
need to know. So it's here's how we're compensated. This is our responsibility to you. We want to have loyalty with each other. We want to trust each other, and if we're a good fit
If we're a
to
good fit.
be
Yeah.
working together. And in our consultation, it's also we have what I call what psychologists or psychiatrists call an intake form.
Totally.
but it's part of that process. It's really kind of getting inside of their head about information that they may not, it's the whys of why you're doing things and not the whats. So a lot of that comes out during a consultation and just to see if we're a good fit.
Yeah. The good fit and the outline of what's next. I mean, because it can be
Mhm.
for most people an overwhelming process and they don't even understand where to begin. And so
Yep.
it's really nice to everybody get on that same page.
I joke about this, but not really. I feel like the person that does my hair spends more time before they cut my hair than a lot of brokers spend with their clients before they buy $1 million house.
Mhm.
That seems wrong to me. Right? Like my hair is going to grow and maybe the color will change, but oh my gosh, you're spending so much money on average in Seattle. So brokers that are listening to this that don't have a consultation process, please reach out to Kelley and Amie, myself, others that do, and just say, what do you do? Because everyone should be doing this. Honestly, everyone should be doing it. Let's talk a little bit about that buyer broker agreement. There's a spot on that we now all have to use by law that talks about exclusive versus non exclusive. So, how do you talk about that with clients? What do you say? I'd love to hear.
We almost always do exclusive. That's the opportunity. If they're interviewing other people, fine, go do that. But we don't want to date around, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
it-
establishing that loyalty to
yeah.
each other. It's like you're starting a relationship, and you don't have to sign this now, but we only work exclusively. If we had a situation where our buyers were like, "Well, we'd like to go out once and see some things before we make our final decision," we would likely make a concession for that. But after that, it would be no, we're exclusive. I mean, I guess at some point, if it was a person who just wanted a particular property
Yeah.
and just wanted you to write it on that, I guess it would be situational, but by and large, it's exclusive only.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then we let them think about it for a few days. And it's like, you don't have to sign it right now. Think about it.
I do the same thing. No polyamory here.
Right.
We're sticking with the old school, like
Yeah.
monogamous real estating here. So that's good. Just for our listeners too, according to this state, anytime you do any sort of real estating for a buyer, you need to have that form signed. And even if you are showing them one house, to which they just said, and if they haven't made a decision yet, you can check non exclusive
Mhm.
for that showing.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah.
and then say, by the way, if we want to continue to work together, here's the only way we do that,
Exactly.
is to check this new box. But please do have that form every time, even if it's non-exclusive for one showing,
Mhm.
just to protect yourself from further lawsuits.
Yeah.
Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you. Switching gears a little bit to 2025, I know, because I've been doing this a long time like you, that our spring market used to start later than it has been starting. But I feel like, holy cow, buckle up, we're going for it. And it's already really fast and furious. Tell us what you're seeing so far in 2025.
Exactly that. Sometimes it takes until February, but I think we noticed within 10 days of January 1st, multiple offers, a ton of early inventory. I mean, not a ton, but more than usual. And yeah, we're off to the races in most neighborhoods.
I recently had buyers that lost out on 21 offers and 15 offers already this year
Wow.
in the North End. Yeah. And there's some talk about if a house goes with 21 offers and goes for 20+% over list price, that potentially a listing agent may have gotten that price wrong if it goes for that far. But talk to me a little bit about what you think about that.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I think it's well, Amy will have her opinion, but mine is just you're wasting people's time. You're wasting and you're getting the hopes up of buyers who shouldn't even be in this price point.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
However, I mean, I think that that's true,
Mhm.
but if you're pricing according to the data, and like we saw prior to 2019, there were situations where, yes, the houses were priced correctly, and there were still 20 offers coming to the table because of the pent up demand and the inventory shortage. And so it's not always the case, but I mean, generally speaking,
Well, if we know, I mean, again, we're running comps on the property
yeah,
before we write an offer on it for our clients. We know if it's underpriced
yeah,
or if it's like we're just going to price this low and try to get it, blow it out of the water or be shocked that it went that
right.
high, because of the pent up demand. But
Or,
usually,
yeah, or Q4 being a dud and there not being like a lot of
Mhm.
good comps.
Right. Yeah, or not enough data to support anything. So, but in general, like when we know that the price is low, it's just sort of, you get 21 offers and only two of them are the best. There's only ever two clear ones.
That's true.
And you've got a lot coming in at lists and it's supposed to be higher. So, I just think you're getting people's hopes up unnecessarily and wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, for sure. In representing buyers, when you come across something like that and your buyer could go much higher, how do you help talk to them about this market? Like, what do you say in your buyer consultations to a buyer who says, I want to buy in Finney Ridge this year and I'm approved for $1 million? Is there any advice that you're giving people that they're going to be up against competition?
Well, we asked them a lot of questions about, how comfortable they are with remodels, how handy they are, and what, and to what level they would want to get into taking on some updates or repairs in a home. But we do talk about how that's one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the city, and that there will almost always be competition. That if we don't play, we don't win. But we all also talk about strategies as to prepare them for what's coming. I think we frame it as, here's the contract. We're going to explain to you all the protections that are in here. And then unfortunately, we're going to have to offer the option of waiving all of those protections in order to compete. And, we don't want
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but it's just the reality of the market. And if they're even a candidate to waive something and, financially or their comfort level.
Yeah, some of that in my experience is also saying, gosh, if you're looking at $1 million in Finney Ridge, let's start at 8.
Right.
Seeing if we can find one quite a bit lower so that you can be the winner at 1 million when it started at 800,000, right? Yeah. Yeah. So besides sort of talking strategy on whether or not you can fix up a house and what your price is, how do you think you position a buyer in 2025 to be successful? So we sort of talked about how fast this market is early on, that there's pent-up demand that we're seeing from last year, that people just waited to see if an interest rate was gonna come down. Lo and behold, it's not. And so they're like, "Well, I better get in the game." But what would you say to other brokers listening to this interview about how to help position your buyers in this market?
It's a multiple offer environment.
Yeah.
So it's about getting, all of your ducks in a row. And it's also, we're in this first quarter, and Q4 of, 2024 was so strange that, review dates were coming and going. And I think that some sellers, or at least what we're seeing fly off the market on 1 day or 2 days, that some sellers aren't putting in a review date because things were sitting so long in Q4. And we've seen several go off market, even if they do have a review date. So sometimes it's just, we try to get a rapport going right away
Mhm.
and try to build that relationship. And we might submit an offer really early, even if they say, they're waiting, and then just say, that's fine. No problem. If it's not, we'll still be here on review date. But, we just wanted to give it a shot and hope that we're first in line when it comes.
Well, and to not get discouraged, I mean, the spring market isn't the only market. So sometimes things can shift dramatically once May or June hits. Like we wrote 2 offers on Christmas Eve this year, um,
Wow.
because nobody else was. There's other little micro dips in the market that happen throughout the year, and you just kind of have to be vigilant and look for those opportunities. So I guess that's what I would say is don't get discouraged. There's always another house, and the spring market can beat you up sometimes.
I think I've said this many times before, but anybody that ends up not doing real estate that was good at it for any length of time, like they were pretty good at it. They were in there for 5 to 10 years. Any other company should hire ex realtors, because our ability to adapt and have to move and shift and help people navigate markets should be high up on any other employer's list to hire. Because if you're good at this, you have to be adaptable, right? You really do have to be adaptable. One of the things you said, Kelly, was to build rapport. And it's always amazing to me when I list a house. When it comes to multiple offers, I will have 5 offers, and 2 of those agents have taken the time to pick up the phone to call me. The other 3, I have no idea who they are. I've never exchanged any sort of conversation with them, but they just emailed me an offer. And I just want to say loud and proud on this podcast, what the hell are you doing, agent? That's terrible representation. We have got to build rapport with that listing agent. We have got to get on their radar for our clients. We can't just be spitting out these offers and hoping they win when we have no idea how to help them win. And so I love that you're doing some really good practices to set your buyers up for success.
There was one saying to our buyers, it's be flexible.
Yeah.
Well, and that agent relationship is so important. I mean, even though the seller is the decision maker, your relationship to their agent counts for a lot.
Yep.
So,
So
And
true.
communication. Remember the days we used to hand deliver and present to the sellers and the agents in person?
Yeah, I'm old enough to say I remember the days when I needed one initial on a form and I had to drive to Bellevue as fast as I could to get it back and fax it over to the other agent to get in contract.
Mhm.
my
Dear God, I'm glad those
Me
days are
too.
over.
Yep.
Oh, I hate the fax machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
That
driving in, like, it's at 9 o'clock at night to
yes, to get one
wherever,
initial, one
because you gotta
stinking
get it.
initial.
You gotta rush
Yeah.
back and get it before.
Gotta get that initial. Let's switch over for a second to the listing side. I know you all do a lot of listings and you're good at marketing them. If anybody of you want to follow Meister Stewart on Instagram, take a look at kind of what they do. But tell us a little bit for our listeners, how do you make your listing stand out? What are 2 or 3 things that pop into your head for that?
We usually have a pretty decent amount of prep with most of our sellers in terms of like how condition plays a huge role, presentation plays a huge role. And we both personally just don't like to list things that are dirty. Anyway, we have a lot of pre-listing talks about what is good, what needs to happen.
And luckily, I would say most of our clients aren't living there, or the houses are typically they're ready to scoot, or we can
Yeah.
send them off on a vacation for, a
Right.
week while we have all of our things. But we just, everything being just buttoned up,
Yeah.
really, really buttoned up, and showing them the value and explaining, how we want to get people in here and stay and experience
Right.
this place. And even the tiny little things that don't seem like a big deal will have clients questioning what's behind the
Yeah.
wall, kind of thing. So even if it's a small item to repair to make it look better, we really
Yeah.
advise doing that.
Eliminating objections.
Yeah. Eliminate. Yeah, for sure. I just, Danny Adamson, who I think you all may know, he's a realtor. I went to one of his listings the other day with my clients, and he said, this house used to have an elevator 2 weeks ago, and it had no full bath at all. And it only has two bathrooms. So he said, we removed an elevator and we added a bathtub to one of these bathrooms in order to make it more interesting and sellable. That's the kind of advice that I think sellers are looking for in us. It's why they're hiring us, is to give them that straight talk in a kind way to say, nope, this is how we're going to help it be marketable, more marketable, right?
Well, we all know that the majority of buyers these days do not want to do work.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true.
So
Yeah,
they'd rather pay more money for something that,
Mhm.
that's done.
than do it themselves.
Do you think that's a millennial thing?
100%. Changing light bulbs can be difficult.
Exactly.
It's
They
really-
wanna go hit the slopes and come home and not be, mowing a yard, right?
They can
So
set
it's
up all the security cameras.
yeah,
Cameras in the system.
that's so true. That's
Yes.
right. They can make it all that way. I love it. Okay, and then kind of our last question, and then I'd love to just free form if we have anything else to talk about, but social media, how do you use that? How important is that for your business? You all have been at this as long as I have, so I have mixed feelings on this whole concept, because I built a business primarily without it, and that continues to serve me. But I also don't want to take away from the relevance of technology and what that can do for different buyers. So I guess that's a big question, but how do you see social media in your business?
I see it as an extension of our marketing. We don't personally do it because we're not very good at that. So we have people on our team that do it for us. But I feel like it's hugely important with the majority of younger buyer people younger than us. I mean, even people our age use social media. The print world is not really as exciting, I guess.
We're good at posting our listings and doing some
Yeah.
reels, and our marketing team's always on us, to
Yeah.
send content like us, doing things or whatnot. And it's just, again, like you said, we built our business not doing it. And most of our business is referral based or repeat, but people are having real success with it. We have a member on our team who has her own thing going, and she just got a random call and a client who's moving here from California because she liked the way she was just talking and pointing out features of a home that wasn't even her listing. We're just, I guess, of a generation. I don't want to spend my life on the phone. I don't want to sit in front of the screen. I'd rather be out interacting or doing something else. But it's generational, I think, for sure. But if you're good at it, it will get you business.
I interviewed a broker recently on the podcast, and she did 30 days straight of videos on her Instagram page of her doing things. I don't even know what. And she got 3 listings out of it. And because it was just her talking about walking through a house, whatever. I don't even know. But to your point, like, there's business to be had. I think I will just say one disclaimer and I think you all can agree with this, is to say those are random people that don't know you, that are reaching out to sell houses. Great. However, the return on investment for people that already know you, that have done business with you, that then refer you, potentially could be higher if you invest. So balance this out. I guess my biggest message is to balance that out. Don't do one without the other, but also just don't do one, because it feels like it's pretty one-sided.
If you're newer in the business, you could build your business that way. I feel that open houses aren't as productive as they used to be. Everybody's so, on their phones or whatever, or want to do it themselves and think they don't. Or already represented. And of course, having the BBSA is now a complication with holding open houses to try to get buyers. I just think, it was a numbers game back in ours. Like, it was like, all right, 1 out of
Yeah,
10, easy.
right.
And now I think it's a lot harder.
Yeah, because they have already signed that agreement and they're, out looking. Yeah, got it. I remember, this is a memory I have when we used to work at the same firm, that you all were a part of a multiple offer, and I'm gonna probably mess up the number, but it was in the 40s, if I recall. There were 40 some offers on some house, or 38 or something stupid. Anyway, and you won. You won. Do you remember this one?
I vaguely remember it. I mean,
Okay, okay.
yeah, there
Yeah.
been not to brag. There've been so many. Yeah, just kidding.
So many that maybe not in the 40s, 40
Oh, yeah,
offers.
no,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe one of those. So I guess I'll ask this question. Why do you think you were chosen? And let's take out because your client could pay cash and go up $800,000. Pretend. I don't think that's actually what happened. So let's take that off the table. But why do you think you were chosen?
Again, building that rapport with the other agent, getting in first. If you have interested clients, start selling it early on without being too annoying. Take their cues, read the marketing remarks, read their offer instructions if they have them, and be careful. Review your
Clean
offer a billion
offers.
times and make it clean and don't make a mistake. It's amazing how messy offers will come in, especially from what do we call them when the offers come in later,
Parachute.
parachuting in. But it's being very direct and honest. I hate to use the word authentic, but I throw it in.
Throw it
Um,
in. Good job.
yeah, but just do your
Mhm.
job.
Yeah. Hey, look at that. Do your job. And I will remind you both because you've forgotten because it's been a couple years since this happened. But because I called the agent and because I wanted to know. I go, hey, I'm the owner of this firm that you all used to work for. I want to know why this team was chosen. And here's what they said. Ready? You're going to laugh at
Oh,
this,
this is funny.
especially based on what you just said. They said they weren't annoying because we had so many offers and they were calling us like crazy and we were sick of, people bugging us to find out. It was a super clean offer, easy to sign, and they were very authentic, not even lying.
No
They were
way.
yes, I swear to God. And it's so funny you say that because I just want the listeners to hear this, right? Like if you present a clean offer, you make a rapport with the agent that's not annoying and is just yourself, like, hey, I know what I'm doing without saying that. Here, we read your instructions. We gave you a great offer. Hope it stands up. Let us know. And I remember, Kelley, you were laying on the couch. We had a couch at our firm upstairs waiting to get the news. And we were all sort of on the edge of our seat. And then you get the news and you won, right? And there's no surprise that you won because of all those things. So good job.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I love that. Yeah, that's
That's
great.
funny.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. Now I'm like, what was that property?
Yeah.
You got to look it up. I
No.
Yeah.
remember it clearly. Good job. So, anything else for our listeners before I give you back to your day? I just am really grateful for your time again, and I think it's so good to have people that listen to this podcast. By the way, we're up to like I don't know, almost 60 episodes and
Good for you.
tons
That's
of hours
great.
of downloads. So people are taking advantage of it
Yeah.
and hearing your voice. I think because there's lots of good quality here.
I
So,
can't believe
yeah.
that we're getting, well, y'all are getting clock hours for this. That's pretty exciting. Do we get clock hours for this?
You
I mean,
do. You
for our help?
absolutely do. You do.
Okay.
Absolutely. As
Right
long as
on.
you answer all the questions correctly about yourself,
Yeah.
we'll
Okay.
make sure you get
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So Shannon, with Audiotocracy, who is the producer of this show, just sent me a message in the chat that said she wanted to delineate your voices. So I'm going to just ask you, Amie Stewart, could you speak for a minute so we can know your voice?
Yeah. This is me, Amie Stewart.
Okay,
Okay.
good. And Kelley, speak up for us. Kelley Meister, the other part of that team.
And I'm Kelley Meister, and just want everyone new out there to hang in there and just do the
Yeah.
work, and the business will come.
Yeah, there we go. I love it. Well, thank you all so much, and good luck in this year. I hope we cross paths. And if I'm an offer on one of your listings, I'll be clean and authentic and not bug you. We'll keep that in mind, and hopefully we'll get to do some business this year.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening into Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.